Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. Welcome to another plugin knowledge session. In this video, we're going to have a look at the Maag EQ2 and EQ4 plugins. So firstly, if you're new to my channel and new to my videos, if you like what you see, click the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all future videos as they come out. So the Maag EQ2, EQ4, they're two plugins, very small condensed plugins. Basically, they are EQs. They're emulating some little hardware units that a company called Maag released, and a lot of mix engineers use the hardware and also now use the plugins. I really like the sound of these plugins. They're quite simple and they're very controlled, right? So you don't have massive detail with lots of bands and lots of controls in a more modern style EQ. But because of those limited controls, you really get to the point of what you're trying to do. And I use them a lot on mastering sessions as well because I really like the sound of it. The air band, as they call it, is really what it became sort of famous for. A shelf that sits at about 40 kilohertz, which technically you shouldn't hear, but because of the way a shelf works and the way it sort of ramps down, it does add, as they refer to it, air. So instead of making it brittle and harsh, it adds some sort of brightness to it, but it's really hard to explain. It just, people say air. I mean, I can't really explain it much better than that because it's very hard to actually explain what it is. So this is, again, one of my older videos and it's been on my website, hasn't made it to YouTube yet. I thought it was time to get it up there because I want to go through my back catalog of videos. I really love this plugin, so I wanted to share it with you. The EQ2, EQ4, as I said, they're two plugins. They operate in different frequency ranges and they can complement each other, so you can use them both together. But if I was to lean one or the other, EQ4 is probably my favorite. That's the one I use most of the time. And the EQ2 is just a complement to it if you want to get them both together. So let's just check it out and I'll show you what they can do. Okay, so let's start with the EQ4 settings. We have got a basic switch here to turn it in or out, so on or off. We have a control here in the sub. So this one sub sits at about 10 hertz. So it's used quite a bit to get to the ultra low sub frequencies. So removing some rumble or trying to get the bass or kick to stand out a little bit more, but right at that very, very low sub range. And then we have a 40 hertz setting here. So again, down in the low end there, again for kick drums and bass guitars, that sort of thing. And we can obviously, with all of these, we can cut or we can boost. Then we have another one here at 160 hertz. So again, this can get into sort of the bass range, but it can also get into the lower parts of some other instruments like guitars, vocals, and that sort of thing. Then we have a 650 hertz one. So this one here, we're starting to get a little bit more up into the mids, and we can get to a range there where we start to get some boxiness or a bit of sort of mid-range thickness to some instrumentation there. And then we have a shelf, and so you'll see the pitches are determining or showing you what it's doing. These ones here are all sort of bells. And the 2.5 here is a shelf. So 2.5 obviously is right in the sweet spot of vocals and even into some rock guitars, that sort of thing. So you can again cut and boost using a shelf with that range there. And then we have our special airband setting here, which again is a shelf. And basically you got two controls here. this shelf here does not do any negative, so you cannot cut. It is purely a boosting only. And you've got off 2.5K, 5K, 10K, 20K, and 40K. And then once you pick the frequency you want, then you have this air gain control, which is basically how much you're going to boost that shelf from 0 up to 10. And then lastly, we have this little level trim here, so we can adjust that. If we're doing a lot of boosting or a lot of cutting, we can use this to level balance the plugin so that when we bypass and unbypass, we don't hear any volume increase or decrease. So we can use that little level trim there to adjust that. Okay, so now we'll move on to going through the settings for the EQ2. Once I've gone through the settings, then we'll have a bit of a listen to each one of them on an entire song just to get a feel for what it does. Okay, so we've got first off an input attenuation here. So, default it's sitting at 0. If we find our signal's a little bit hot, we can actually dial this down to reduce that, the signal being input into the plugin. And we would base that on these lights here, the signal and peak settings there. Now we have a few settings here that go sort of hand in hand. Okay, so it's broken up into a couple of components here. So first off, we'll start with this air band over here, because this is pretty much exactly the same thing that is in the EQ4 up here. And basically what we've got is we've got our same shelf settings, 2.5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 40. Okay, so I said the same there, but there is an additional number in this one. So if you compare the EQ4 to the EQ2, we have added a 15K range in the EQ2 that is not in the EQ4. So there's an addition there. We then have our gain control for that airband from 0 to 10. And we have a switch here to switch it in and out. So we can independently turn these two different sections on or off. So then we have our other section here, which is our low mid frequency range. So this range here basically, and the reason you might want both of these plugins is that this can complement this one by allowing you to target frequency ranges that you could not target in the EQ4. You'll see from the EQ4, you're pretty limited to just these 40, 160, 650 range and then above. With this one here, we have a lot more sort of settings here. Even we've got the sub as well that's down there. So again, we've got an in and out, so that's turning this low mid frequency range on or off. We have a gain control, so this is going to set how much we boost. Again, it's all boost. There's no cuts in this one, so we can't cut any frequencies whatsoever. And the dial here looks a little bit complicated in what it's giving you the values for, but what it goes hand in hand with is this switch here. So you'll see the switch has, it's sort of, I guess, like a cue for the parametric or the bell shape. It's showing this white value is wider and this red value is sharper. But what it's also doing, it's also giving you the settings on this control here. So with the switch set to white, our control here then targets these frequency ranges in the white. So we've got the sub, 57 Hertz, 88 Hertz, 220 Hertz, 400 and 1.4K. If we were to switch this switch over to the red, then we end up with 40, 65, 150, 250 and 1K. And that's pretty much it. So that's the controls. Very simple. It's just a basic EQ, both of them. So if you understand EQ, it's just a matter of understanding the different settings here and getting a feel for how they work and what you're going to do on your mix. So as I said, I've got an entire song here, which I just thought would be easier to hear the differences on than individual instruments. So let's start again with the EQ4, and I will basically just play the music and turn some knobs and let you hear what it does. Now, just want to highlight there, it's interesting with this sub is it's targeted at 10 hertz, but it really does some interesting things to your song and sort of boosts and adds some quality to a lot more than just the low end. It really broadens out. And I find it very useful to even just turn this on for any sort of instrument or song or whatever else, just to add that little bit of extra sort of thickness there. Now, we could balance match this, and I'll give you an example by bypassing it. So you'll hear there, it really brings up a nice level of low end there without making it sound muddy or anything else. So even though it's classified as being at 10 hertz, it's doing a hell of a lot more than just that. So it's a very interesting control, that one. So let's continue on with the other settings. So even with the airband here, let's do the same thing again as we did with the sub and see if you can hear the difference there. So I've got it set to 40K, got it turned up quite a bit, but not excessively. So 6, I'll just check that it's volume matched. Now to my ears, using headphones, it literally does sound like it adds air. When I have it bypassed, the sound starts to enclose in on my ears, and then as soon as I bring it in, it's almost like the whole song just moves out and starts to breathe and move away from my ears and add some air. It's really weird that it does that. So that's the EQ4. Pretty simple to use, as I said, but great sounding, great quality, and this airband is just phenomenal, especially on vocals. Definitely love adding this to a vocal track. So let's check out the EQ2 now. So a simple input attenuator there, obviously can drop the signal down. Let's just take that out, start with the airband. And we'll play with the low mids now. So we'll start off with the setting on the white and then move over to the red. So it seems on the red setting here, the sub also works for either. So let's turn up here, and what I'm going to do is just compare a couple by switching the switch. So let's start with the 6588. So that's the EQ2. So check these plugins out, Maag EQ4, EQ2, see if you like them. If you can get them on sale for a great price, I definitely recommend that you get one of them. I probably lean towards, if you only want to get one, getting the EQ4. That's probably the one that I use the most, because you can cut and boost, and you pretty much cover most of the majority of the key frequencies in some of the instruments, and you really want to get it for the airband. Okay, so you can add the EQ2 if you can afford it, but it depends whether you want to use these extra settings here, but only for boosting. So there you go, there's the EQ2 and EQ4 from Maag. And as I said, I love these plugins. I use the EQ4 most of the time. Really love it on mastering sessions, just adding a little bit of extra low end or a bit of top end, and that airband really adds to your songs as you're going, just for that last bit of tweaking at the end. So to be honest with you, it is sort of a luxury item that you probably aren't going to use as your day-to-day EQ. It is something that you're going to use to just add that little bit extra to your songs, more in the final stages. So just keep that in mind if you are tight on budget, that maybe this is not the plugin to grab first off, but definitely a great plugin that I have and I love using it. So let me know what you think of it in the comments. Grab a demo or something like that, try it out and let me know what you think. Do you think it's worth getting? Do you like it? So if you liked the video, click the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos as they come out. Hopefully it's been helpful. Thank you for watching and I'll catch you in the next one.